Hey, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Underneath the Iceberg. I'm your host, Sean Denon. Join me as we dive deep into the untold stories of success. Through candid interviews, we're going to reveal pivotal moments and defining experiences that propelled these ordinary individuals to their level of greatness. Let's go. What is up, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Underneath the Iceberg. I'm super excited about our today's guest. Today's guest is David Carroll, and David's someone that I've known for quite some time. And as I always do on Underneath the Iceberg, I'm not going to tell you about David. I'm going to let David tell him a little bit about himself. So, David, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule, man. I know you're all over the place.
I appreciate you having me, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Where are you at currently?
Yeah. So based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, beautiful Twin Cities area. Born and raised in St. Paul. For anyone that's been here, they're pretty close together. A little bit about my background. I grew up in St. Paul. Sorry. Let me start where we're at right now.
Yeah. We'll start today.
Owner of Dope Marketing. We are a company that lets you send laser focused direct mail with no minimum order. Going on our third year in business. I own a couple companies, but this is where my main focus is. Third year in business. We just hired our 50th employee. We're at 8 figures a year in revenue on this company right now. I own a data business that I've had for 10 years. And then I got into entrepreneurship. I started a power washing company. We're going on our 14th year. I'm completely phased out of that company. That company has anywhere during the year, like 12 to 15 employees, sometimes higher, peak seasons, whatever. But I haven't set foot there in 3 years. Completely removed from that one. So 3 businesses, main focus and priority is Dope Marketing. I've been with my wife for 14 years. We just had our 5th child 4 months ago. Yeah, busy over here at the Carroll household. But
Any age ranges on the kids? So you have 5 kids?
So 10, almost 8, 3, 1.5, and 4 months.
So you've already been blessed with sainthood then, bro. Like you're already set. You're good.
All of it. That's deal. All of it. And then no more. 5 was enough.
We got it? I was going to say, we have more planned there.
No, snipped, done, wrapped. We named number 5 Kobe because Kobe Bryant, the greatest. We have a starting basketball team now as 5, and apparently I can't miss when it comes to kids like Kobe. So we're done.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Congrats, dude. Congrats. That's so fun.
Thank you.
All right. So that's amazing, man. Amazing. Where you're at today. I personally have worked with Dope Marketing. You guys are amazing. Just the data that matches, and that's the secret, man. So like that's the part that you didn't reveal is that So for anybody listening, if you're interested in direct mail marketing services and stuff, David's system not only can identify where the stuff is going and who you're sending it to, but has all these data points of like for example, I have a space in the vet space, and we had done some stuff in the vet space, and it's like it's going to people who just bought dogs and who have dogs and who have interest, and based on the fact that they buy dog food on credit cards, like all these crazy data points. And I'm like, dude, this is it's direct mail, but it's direct mail 2.0. Right? Like it's a different level of direct mail. So kudos to you, man. It's a great service.
Thank you.
All right, brother. So why don't we get back to your early days in St. Paul and how you grew up? Tell me about your family. Tell me about your journey and everything that started from as you were a kid to what brought you to the entrepreneur that you are today.
Yeah. So my background is a little bit let's say checkered. I grew up in St. Paul. Mom and dad were married 3 times each. They had 3 kids before meeting each other, had me and my brother separated. And then, so I have technically, 7 brothers and sisters. Grew up with 3 of them. The other ones didn't know, as well, holidays and stuff like that. I knew at a young age that I wanted a little bit more attention than I was getting at home, as I've reflected as a parent and look back at some of that stuff. So
yep.
I started getting into a little bit of trouble around 14. Fast forward, at 14, I got kicked out of my first school, ended up going to 9 high schools, got my diploma a year late, started getting into walking cliche, like younger kid, hanging out with the older people, getting into drugs. But my thing was like, I took my story a little bit further and faster. When I dive into something, I like to dive in good. So by the age of 17, I was in a hotel room counting $1 million with guys that we had family out in California, bringing stuff back to Minnesota. I'd been exposed to that stuff kind of since I was a young teen, and just kind of like, I don't want to say leveled up in that stuff, but
that's what happens, right? It's a business. It's a business.
Yeah, it was, and again, I don't like to cloud the like, entrepreneurism with anything like that. But I think what happens is in your path, being exposed to some of those things, you just learn things about like people and emotional intelligence and networking and stuff like that. And I don't, we can get into that conversationally, but what happened was when I turned, so I'm 17, I'm getting into stuff, dealing with, older people, gangs, drugs at a high level, like all that. When I was 21, I got robbed for like $130,000. I went in and kicked the dude's door in, hit him with a pistol, ended up getting stabbed 4 times. I ended up doing a little bit over 4 years in prison from when I was 21 to 25. And I'm very open talking about that. I don't like leading with like the felon entrepreneur hustle mentality. It's not really my thing. But I think that, you look at the years of anyone's life. I think women develop a little bit faster than men on an age timeline. But for me, as a young man, 21 to 25 was some of my most developmental years of my life, as far as just like what you're exposed to. Think if you're not in a situation like that, you're going to college, you're getting your job, you're getting into your career, maybe you're traveling or something like that. And for me, I just made some decisions that I had to take responsibility for. And so I was in prison till right before I turned 25. I ended up only having to do like 3 years and some change. Violated, was only out for a month and had to go back for almost a year. I still, after getting out of that, I didn't have my head on my shoulders. Like I'd never had a job in my life. I had gotten a job at Arby's when I was 15, and I think I put a mozzarella stick in the deep fryer, and they didn't like that because I wasn't old enough, so I got fired after a week. I got a job at a gas station when I had cash when I was 18 for an apartment, and they were like, "We can't take cash, dude. This isn't Breaking Bad. Like, go the fuck, get out of here." So I found like a gas station that I got a job at for like a month, and that was just like a bullshit or whatever. And then when I got out, I was in a halfway house, and my buddy got me a job at a window cleaning company. It was the only exposure I had ever really had to like gainful employment as an adult. Ended up fucking up, having to go back and get locked up. And then when I got out, I was back on the same shit for like a year. I had looked at like I knew I wanted to open some type of business, and I, like most of us, had no fucking clue what I was doing. And so I went back to my old lifestyle. I think they say this in like sobriety, like sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yep.
And so I took another big financial loss. There was some other trouble stuff with the law that was going on, and I was just like, man, I looked at my now wife and was just like, I can't do this shit anymore. Like, we're going to fucking die. We're going to get, I got a million stories about that lifestyle. Basically, like from 16 to 21. And then after I got out for a year, my life was just a fucking rap video every day, like every single day, everything you could imagine. And so being exposed to a lot of that stuff, like I learned a lot about risk adversity in business, and kind of like depending on myself and being able to, whether it was network or multitask or whatever. But by no means do I ever give credit to like any exposure to the lifestyle that I chose in my life to where I'm at today. I think like all of us, you make decisions as you're growing up, whether it's in your early life or later, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever. And you just kind of have to look back at your decisions and where they got you. And I think for me, I'm very thankful that I was exposed to home service and the trades right away, because I'm not a big guy on regrets. I mean, the decisions I made got me to where I'm at today. But what ended up happening is when my wife and I made the decision, like, we're not gonna live like this anymore. We did what we knew. We started a window cleaning, power washing business that I still own to this day, 14 years later. Yeah.
Wow. So that was the first official. It was like, okay, done with this lifestyle, completely cut that.
Not even fucking jaywalked since, like nothing. Like
I even jaywalk. That's awesome.
I want none of those problems. I learned that like my most valuable asset is my time. And as long as I'm not putting myself in a position where my time can get taken away, I don't look at it like that, like, oh my God, I could go back to jail. But it's more like Puff Daddy said this once. He's like, you put me in a jungle naked, I'm gonna come out with a chinchilla the next day. Like chinchilla goat. I just always looked at it like, I don't need someone to let me near their fire. I'll go start my own fire. I'll be fine. And as I've grown as a human, as a father, as a business partner, as a parent, as all, like, I don't have that mentality as much as my back to the wall, but it's kind of where my journey started, was that mentality. And that you'll hear, I think there's a book, what got us here won't get us there. That's been a lot of the story of my life, of just realizing like the ceilings that you can hit along the path of whatever your version of success is, and kind of realizing that, like, you know, it's not always about you and what you can do. It's usually, a lot of times it's much bigger than that.
Yeah, you know, and I think, I mean, you know, I completely agree with you with not, you know, crediting your current success basically, you know, for that stuff. But I also think that a lot of that is formative. A lot of the experiences that you went through, and the adversity, and the, you know, that, you know, being on top of the mountain, right? Because like you said, you're 19 years old, you're counting $1 million, you can buy anything, you can do this. And then the next thing you know, it's like, you're asking for someone to put $10 in your comments account or something, you know what I mean? Like, it's like a different, like, just wake up call of like, I can have everything and I could lose it all, right? And I think even in entrepreneurship, that's an important thing, right? Because that happens in businesses all the time, right? 80% of small businesses fail. So I think like that, you know, knowing that it's like, listen, no matter what, I got to figure out a path. I got to figure out a way. A lot of that did come from those struggles and those things. So, you know, I always look at that too. And I've told, you know, and I think I've revealed this to you in the past, but I've told this on the podcast before. I look at the way I am today, and I went through tremendous bullying when I was young. Like, dude, like, hiding in the bathrooms every single day, like, would have to like take different paths home from school, like, you know what I mean? Like, just for whatever reason, I was that selected kid, right? Like, and I was that tortured kid. But then, you know, I walk on stage today and I'm talking in front of 100 people, and you know what I mean? And then people are like, dude, what do you mean? Like, where, like, and I'm like, but you have to understand, like, a lot of who I am today and the confidence that I have and everything was built from having to build up from a place that a lot of people didn't have to build from. Like, a lot of people, you know, and thank God I had a super supportive family, and I had amazing parents, and I had amazing, you know what I mean? So like, it wasn't that complete, but that side of like personal relationships and trusting relationships, man, like, I couldn't trust relationships for the longest time and everything, right? So like, I always look at that, and like, those experiences are tough, you know, but like, when you can embrace them, and then, you know, I know you're a huge mindset guy, dude, and I think that's what we connect on, a lot of that kind of stuff. And I actually, like, from a true, like, inside my heart, like, gratitude thing, like, I've actually found gratitude in those experiences. Like, you know, I've done a lot of deep work, done a lot of mental work and things like that, but I actually look back and I'm like, there's always a way, right? Like, and I believe in duality. I believe in, like, in every darkness, there's a light on the other side and stuff like that. So I look at it and I'm like, would I be the man I am today if I didn't go through those things?
Of course not.
Like, I'm the same great, what I, you know what I mean? So it's like, so it's an interesting dynamic, right? When it's like, when you have those troubles and you have those things and do that. So yeah, man. Well, that's fascinating, man. So tell me, so going back to, you know, those times and everything, like, what would you say that you learned about yourself? Like, you said that those years from like 21 to 24, right? Like, those are huge formative years for you as a young adult and everything. And here you are in a totally different thing, but learning and experiencing different things. So tell me a little bit about that.
The biggest thing that I took from it, Sean, was like, I always used to have this mentality about, you know, living that lifestyle of someone else bleeds, someone else breathes. Why would I ever fear them? Like, we're all human.
Yep.
I was able to take that mentality into business, where like, you see people, you know, I came up in the Facebook groups and the stuff. Facebook came out, what, 10, 12 years ago is when it started really getting like big and shit. And like, the networking, the socializing, the going through, what I saw very quickly was like, competition, it was a word to me that I didn't even think should be in the dictionary, because like, I can literally wake up earlier and go to sleep later than you and outwork you and have whatever my version of success is. When I would look at like the different phases of business and, you know, I want to get off the truck, or I want to get to $1 million a year, or I want to do these different things. The concept of like stealing like an artist is something that speaks very big to me, because it's like, An artist doesn't just look at a blank canvas and start painting and have the Picasso come out. They go through things in life. They go through relationships. They go through trials and tribulations and joy and pain and all of it. And then they go wander around and get inspired by something and steal like an artist and create their version of what they like, their expression. And so when I look at business and the concept of like stealing like an artist, I come to the terms where like, whether it's something I've been doing for a while or an idea I want to start, is like, there is someone in the world, some man, some woman, some person that has already achieved a level of success in what I want to do greater than I will ever achieve. And when I approach something with that mentality, it allows me to take other people and their successes, their journeys, and be inspired by it to identify a problem and solve it and just put my spin on it. And so like, when I think about, you know, the relativity of the things, and again, for me too, a lot of just like growth mindset work and no one's perfect, but the things that I spend a lot of time on are like, I just know what I'm capable of if I focus. I know that like, if I'm in a good place and if I'm filling up I can't pour into anything else until I have my cup completely full. And I just go to like all the things that I've picked up in my journey. And I look at like, if someone else has done something before, I can take that and use it to as corny as it sounds, like, to help people.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
it's really, if I had to say anything, it's the relativity, Sean, of like understanding what we're truly in control of. Because as humans, the only thing you're really, really in control of is your reaction to any given situation. I can sit here and talk calmly about it and lower my voice and shit, but I'm a reactive hothead. These are things I have to work at all the time. I can give you an example from last week with an interaction with someone from our sales team where I'm like, the fuck are you thinking?
Yep.
It's the practice every day and the discipline of understanding that like, you can only control your reaction to things and put yourself in the best position to like get where you want to go.
Dude, one of my favorite things, someone told me, they're like, there's no such thing as you made me angry. Anger is a chosen response, right? So you didn't make me angry. I chose to respond to you with anger based on however that triggered me or however that made me feel, right? So like, that was always interesting to me because I'm the same guy, man. I try to keep it cool and stuff, but I've been talked to about, you know, my former partners, and if they were listening to this, which they do listen to this, so they'll tell you, Sean's an intense dude. That's always been my thing, right? So it's not that I'm bad, it's not that I'm, you know what I mean, but I'm intense. I bring that intensity level, which I think helps in a lot of areas and stuff, but also that can lead to those quick responses, right? To those anger moments where you're just like, I just respond with that. And it's like, and then after the fact, I'm like, that's not how I wanted to respond. That's not, you know what I mean? And like, you can think about it, but you know, one of the things that has been a hot topic, you know, I do a lot of business coaching and stuff like that with younger entrepreneurs and everything. And one of the things that's been a hot topic for me is having people understand the concept of exactly what you were talking about, man. There's certain things that you can control. And when you learn the power of focusing on the things that you have control over and applying your effort and attention to what you have control over and not the things that you don't have. So a perfect example, I had one client that was like, hey, you know, he's got marketing clients and he's like, this one client's just not happy with the results. And I think he might, you know, maybe move away and he might, you know, but he has this, right? And it's just all this back and forth. And every day we're getting on these calls, we're talking about this one client bringing in $1,000 a month of, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm just like looking at it and I'm like, just stop for a second. Just breathe for a second. I'm like, why is this so important? Like, why is this one, you know? And it's like, well, I just, you know, and I'm like, you are literally 90% of your energy this week has been spent on thinking about, is this guy going to cancel? Is he going to do something? Is he this? Is he that? I'm like, what do you have? Do you have control over that in any way, shape, or form? Like, you gave him all the data. You did a great job. You delivered results. You did everything you're supposed to do. Now it's out of your control. If he decides to go in a different, like, so don't spend the rest of your week focused on that. You did your job. You did your piece. What do you have control over? You can go DM some people right now. You can go do some cold outreach. You can get, right? So I always try to like redirect people into like, when you're feeling in those moments of like, I'm out of control, like these things are out of control, focus on what you do have control, right? You know, it's the same thing with like your health journey and this, that, and the other thing, right? It's like, hey, I have control over lacing up my sneakers and going out and taking a walk, right? I have control over going into the gym. I always tell people for the gym, I'm like, the key thing with the gym is no matter how bad you don't want to go, right, is drive to the gym and commit to a 5-minute workout.
Yeah.
5-minute workout, right? And just commit. And like, that's all you're going to tell yourself is like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I'm going to walk into the gym. I'm going to work out for 5 minutes and I'm out, right? I guarantee you will never leave in 5 minutes, right? You're in there, you change the mindset, but you have control over that. But you don't have control over the feelings of home of, oh, I'm sore. I just don't feel like it. I'm tired. I'm this. But as soon as you put yourself in control and you put yourself in the environment and you take a Red Bull or a little, you know what I mean? And you just put yourself in that mindset, then it's like you're there. So it's really interesting, man. And I also believe in, our like what we concentrate on is going to multiply, right? So, people are like, man, and it's just a constant looking at it. It's like, oh, like I missed this goal or I didn't hit that goal. And that's where like I always tell people, I'm like, you want to have your big goals, right? So when you started Dope Marketing, like, hey, I got these big visions, big goals, but don't miss the micro goals. Don't miss the micro wins. Don't miss that first $2,500 client that's your big win. That's it. Right? Because you have to celebrate those, and you have to celebrate those as you go to the path. Because if you put the marker on, I want a $2 million a year business, right? Everything leading up to you achieving a $2 million a year business is almost a failure because you haven't done it yet, right? So what I would tell somebody is say, okay, you want a $2 million business. What's the plan, right? Okay, so the first is we need to achieve 100K in revenue. Well, that's going to be our first target. Now, how do we get 100K in revenue? Then how do we do that, right? So I always just tell people to just break things down, have your big, hairy, aggressive goals, have all those things. Those are important. But then what are your micro goals that will get you to those? Because there's actually a dopamine hit that happens every single time you achieve something, right? That's why, listen, man, I take these notes, love yourself. That one stays there every single day, right? I congratulate myself. It's been a great week, and it's like just little mental notes to yourself where it's like, and that's important, But yeah, my mindset's big.
It's like with goals for me, I compare it a lot to training. So like I got really heavy into running last time. I'm going for a run after we get off this call.
Nice.
My thing where I compare training and business is you got to push yourself to a spot to meet your goal, not always to meet the goal, but to know what that feels like at that 9th out of 10th mile or that last push of that. Because then you can fucking go there every time. When something gets hard, when something gets tough, when you set these goals, the beautiful part is the journey because you're gaining all that knowledge and intelligence that when you get to the goal, great, ring the fucking bell, do the high fives, give all of it. But now when you go to your next goal and some shit gets hard, you went there. You have lived in that place before of that pain, of that heart rate, of that financial, of that whatever. And you just know that like, it's only going to hurt before it gets better. Every time that you're in that pain, you want to give up, you want to go through it. And then you're just like, I know what this feels like. I know I can do more. The body will always give up before the mind. Like you can always push more. I've become friends with some guys that are into that like ultra marathon. My buddy Kev, I was talking to Kev this morning. He just got off a 50-mile run last week and is in such good shape. He's affected for it for like a day or two after. He went to Mexico with his wife after they hung out on the beach. And it wasn't because he like was dead and needed to recover. But it's great to finish a 50-mile run. It's better to be able to reflect on those points that got you up to where you're like, I can do this. I know how to do this. I know how to celebrate the wins. I know how to get through the mud, the hard shit, all of it. And so like, as big as I am on goals, to your point, I love those notches along the journey because that's where you really grow and develop.
Well, and I love that because they always say it's like, don't fall in love with the outcome, the goal, fall in love with the process, right? Amen. And for me, from my fitness standpoint, bro, that was the biggest thing because, I used to be 320 pounds and like morbidly obese and everything. And it's like, I was always focused on like the outcome, right? Like I had to like lose weight or I had to this. But once I got addicted to the process, bro, I can't go 2 days without going to the gym. I go crazy. right? Like it's like because
like that now.
I'm addicted to the process now. Like I get something from it. I feel good. I feel, my body, that soreness. I like that soreness. I like waking up and feeling because I'm like, that's because I think about it from a mental side. I'm like, that's muscle growth, bro. I know what's happening right now. I know why that's sore, right? So you kind of like you kind of frame that and put that in. But yeah, man, I'm huge on that, right? Like one of my favorite quotes of all time is the Will Smith, the brick by brick, right? Don't look at the wall. We all look at the wall. We want that. Just lay that next brick perfectly, right? Just put that next brick perfectly and do that. That's awesome, man. So two things I want to cover real quick before we start to wrap up. So number one, you had mentioned Facebook very softly, 10, 12 years and stuff like that. You are honestly, David, you're one of the best content creators that I know that's in my feed and everything like that. You create amazing content. Talk to the audience about content creation. Talk about the importance. Talk about, because like yours is consistent, bro, and it's always out there, and it's not always related to dope marketing, right? Like you'll just jump on and you'll talk about mindset, or you'll talk about this, or you'll talk about that, but just talk to the audience a little bit, because I honestly, like, I follow you, and I try to mirror some of your content things, and I try to put that in place. So, being a mentor of mine in the content space, talk to the audience about that.
For sure, I appreciate that, Sean. Like for me, Facebook for me was like right time, right place. I was at a point where we were trying to get some messaging out right when I got into the home service industries, power washing, window cleaning, all that type of stuff. Facebook was just coming out. And so I had a platform, an avenue to kind of like, I just wanted to share. I was fucking excited, like about everything. I naturally get a little hopped up about the stuff that I do. But like, I found a platform to be able to share and get advice and be in front of people and network. And I know, like, fast forward to now, like anyone watching or listening to this, think about the people that you've met on the internet over the past 10 years that you're closer with than people that you've known your whole life or that you grew up with. Like, this is the world we live in now. Well, the way that you get connected with people is, the definition would be by putting out content. What's content? Is it a video? Is it asking a question to people that you're connected with to start some conversations or some community? Like, that's one thing I'm big on. Everyone's like, oh, Dave, you're good at video. You're this. I'm a talker. Like I've always have been my whole life. Great. So you can point a camera at me and I might not get as nervous as anyone else or whatever, but just like anyone, dude, I've been on the internet for fucking 12 years. Go look at some shit from 12 years ago. It's definitely not what it is today, like anything, but it's like, I think that the really important part of content for anyone, business owner, manager, parent, whatever, is like, use what we have access to this day and age to just connect with people. Because like, if you can create a world where you're surrounded by the people you want to be around, the people that you share things and interests with, the people that you have similar lifestyles with, like, as humans, we're very predictable creatures, and humans do what makes them feel comfortable. What makes them feel comfortable? Getting in a Facebook community, getting in a Nextdoor app. And now as a business owner, you should have a fucking cheat code. Because what I like to say is, as a business owner, your customers have 100 problems. You should solve 1 to 7 of those perfectly. Like, that's why you started your business, because you identified something that you grew up around, went to school for, had a job for, fucking saw someone else doing that you thought could be done better, came up with a widget, like whatever it was. But you made the decision that like, you want to put a solution in front of people. There's a statistic that I've been reading about lately a lot, and depending on the industry, between 3 to 6% of your perfect customer is looking for exactly what the fuck you're doing right now, today. So if you're just putting out messaging around like who you are, the problem you solved, a job you just did, a person that you just helped, a neighborhood that you just visited, an expert advice or strategy of how to hire someone that does what you do. Like, if you just put shit out there in the world, that's one side of it. But the other side of it is like, one thing that anyone will trust, anyone, doesn't matter who, and I own a data business, I get into this shit. Transparency. Like, if you can show who you are, what you're about, what you're into, what you like, it's one thing to see that on the internet, but if you're in business and you start meeting people and they're like, holy shit, this is exactly how this person is when I see them, when they're with their kids, when they're at work, when they're with their spouse, when they're with their parents, when they're with their priest, like whatever. And it creates this trust that just wasn't possible 20, 30, 40 years ago. And the way you do that is get online, do a video and talk about a problem you solve, something you're interested in, how you help someone, and put that shit in front of people, and a magic thing will happen. Just like working out, just like dating the man or woman that you're into, just like any of it. If you just stay fucking consistent, like great things will happen. And any version of like success that I've had in my life has simply come from fucking working hard, being consistent, and not being a shitty person. And so with content and messaging and putting these things out, everyone's got their why. Everyone's got, whether you know it or not, like what your why is. Everyone's got a reason they do something. It could be paying bills. It could be being a better parent. It could be inspiring someone. It could be you have a backstory and your drive every day is from a thing. If you just have a realistic conversation with the one person that matters more in the world than anyone, it's the person you're looking at in the mirror. Yep. If you can understand from that person, like what you're about, what do you do, what inspires you, where are you at? I put myself in a situation at a pretty young age that I had to get to know myself pretty well.
Yep.
Everyone's got a version of their story. So whether you grew up in a bad neighborhood, getting abused, getting bullied, all the way to the people that like had this dream life with a silver spoon, everyone's got their version of like what was fucked up about their upbringing or what they went through or their story or something to draw from to be inspired. And if you can take a step back and understand that, like, be selfless, remove yourself, your ego. I'm not good on video. I get nervous. That's fucking transparent. If you get on video, you're like, yo, I don't do this a lot, but I just wanted to talk about something, or I just wanted like this morning, we're on, it's September 22nd or something. I got on this morning and I just had some thoughts. So I asked some questions. I was like, I think this morning I asked people like, what would you do if you had $20,000 to invest in your business today? What would you do? Another one, we were talking the other week, like I gave up drinking 18 months ago, which is a good decision for me. Me and my wife did it at the same time. I want everyone to drink, to get married, to do whatever they want to smoke weed out of your gun with your husband and wherever you want to. Life is hard enough to be happy. Do what makes you happy. For me and my wife, we decided we were going to stop drinking. I asked the other day, for those of you that drink or don't drink, how often and have you ever stopped? And the thing's got like 300 comments of just people talking about their life, about what they're going through. I've seen there's like threads in there with people having like conversations with people that I've never met. And I'm always so humbled that I can put shit out in the world just to get conversations going, to connect other rational individuals, to have intelligent conversation and be inspired. And maybe a year down the road, these people meet in person and become friends and get closer with the people that they grew up with because they have more in common. And so I think all of that starts with putting out content, with sharing, with asking, with having community. Because for all the negative about the internet and data and politics and bullshit and all the shit we're exposed to in the news, what about the beautiful part about being able to just like connect with people and have conversations with like-minded individuals? And it all starts for me putting out content.
Well, dude, and what you said about like knowing, so like you and I met in person once. We talked for about 30 seconds at a 7-figure agency event, shook hands, whatever. Hey, what's up, bro? Right?
Yep.
I know more about you, your family, what your kids look like, your daily habits, what you do than my neighbor, right? That lives next door to me, right? Like, and I know my neighbor, right? But I could genuinely say, if I had to, give a description of David Carroll versus my neighbor Joe, I could tell like 20 minutes about you, right? And it's like, and I met you, I talk to Joe 6 times a week. I met you one time, but it's from that. And I think it's a very important point because, getting back to like, doing it well. Number one, you're absolutely right. Like Josh Nelson, we both know Josh Nelson. I always tell people in the 7-figure agency, right? I'm like, Josh is a great content guy. He's great on camera, his hand motions, his things. I'm like, go watch, because I've known Josh for 5 years. I remember Josh when we had like little, in the Holiday Inn, like little bag lunches, right? Like these little small little masterminds, right? I remember that 7-figure agency. And I'm like, go back to that content and look at that content. It's terrible, like from a perspective of this, but it wasn't terrible because it was consistent and he did it and he showed up and he got better. It's a trained skill, right? So like you said, you can just jump. I bet you one take content all the time, right? Just turn on your camera and just start talking. Well, it's an acquired skill. You did it so consistently for so many years. The other thing that I think everyone can take away from this is the blended content. And that's what I appreciate. Honestly, that's what I got from you. And that's what you see my stuff, man. It's about, so I'm a, obviously do mindset coaching and I 12 daily discipline, the daily disciplines and put everything in place. Right. But everything that I produce on there is similar to that. So like, for example, I have a shredded 16-year-old, my kid, right? Just jacked. Right. But that kid has like adopted, like he got super motivated, right? And he's like, God, I want to go to the gym like 2 years ago. But he adopted habits, dude, where he's a 16-year-old boy who wakes up at 4:30 in the morning, goes to the gym, right? Comes home from the gym, makes 6 eggs with a measured glass of milk, with a protein bar, with a, you know what I mean? And just dials it in, bro. And so like, I'll use that as an example. And then, dude, it's hashtag driven consulting group, right? Because it's like, look, I live it in all my life, right? And that's what I try to produce out is like the way that I live my life, the way that my kids live their life, the way that I do my business, the way that I coach my business, everything is in alignment with that. So point being is blend the personal and the professional, right? I think some people will just create that one thing and then and the other thing is, from a content tip, and I got this from you too, is to your point, like don't make the content about me, right? Like don't make it just about me. Like, hi, Dope Marketing is doing this today and Dope Marketing is doing that today. It's like, that's great. But let's talk about something real. Let's talk about that 9-mile run. Let's talk about this because it connects at a different level, right? And it just connects. It makes you more human. It makes people connect. So, couple tips from one of the best in the business at content right here, David Carroll. Listen, make it authentic and connect with people. And to your point, that had nothing to do with anything you sell, bro. Hey, have you alcohol or this or half? I'd say more than half of the content you produce actually has nothing to do with what you sell. Like 20% of the content that you put out there probably
like we're in business from 9 to 5, right? There's a little sprinkle or alluding.
Look at these full signs that we're doing, right? I got to remember that piece, or like but it's still tied in, and I think that's key. So. All right, man, this has been awesome. Thank you for sharing those content tips. I think a lot of people, and seriously, follow this guy, right? Like, so if you don't follow him, follow this guy. Like, you will get some really good content tips. Last part, we touched on it. I always like to find out the why, right? So, and I always ask people, and actually I had somebody, I think you know her, Chris Rodriguez. Chris, she owns the martial arts studio and stuff. Chris Rodriguez gave me this little thing, and we did this on her podcast where she was like, she did this exercise in discovering a why, and it was 7 layers deep is what she calls it, right? So when you say like, hey, so, my why is, I want to be a good father for my kids. Why? Layer 1. Well, because I want them to have a good life. Why? Well, because why, right? And if you keep asking yourself why, it's just an interesting exercise. You start to dive deep into what that really means, right? Like, what is that really driving? Because I don't want them, perfect example. All 3 of my kids, really good martial artists, man. Obviously, very physical. Obviously, would you guess that my kid is the number 1 target of bullying in school? Probably not. And honestly, never has dealt with it. But he's put himself in a position of confidence where never will he get bullied, but B, never will he be the bully, bro. Like, and nor will he allow that to happen around him, and nor will, you know what I mean? So like, there's that aspect of it. But a lot of that got imparted from, I didn't want my kids to go through what I went through. So at a very young age, I taught them how to defend themselves. I taught them, you know what I mean? And built themselves up in that scenario and none of them fight, bro. Like, honestly, my only kid that ever got in a fight was my 15-year-old kid. Got in a fight one time. It was when we first moved down to Florida. He was 10, 9, something like that. Walking home, there's a boy in his class who's autistic, right? Really, really cool kid, little surfer kid and everything. And like Christian really liked him. So walking through the park, bunch of kids go up around the kid, messing with his hair, it's classic stuff, right? Just knocked his books, right? So my kid just walks past quietly. Nobody knows my kid yet. He's new to the school. He's the new kid. Just walks past quietly. He's like, leave him alone, bro. Just like that, no big deal. Just leave him alone, man. Like, what, you want smoke, man? The kid gets all tough with him, right? And Christian's just looking at him like, dude, you have no idea, right?
No
Like,
clue what you're getting yourself into.
I'm not going to fight you. And this kid's way bigger than him. Christian's small, right? So anyway, he's just harassing. Now he's harassing Christian. So Christian's like, dude, I'm not going to fight you. So the video starts with Christian. Basically, the kid comes over and he goes, all right, listen. He goes, I'm going to give you either you're going to get up and back up your words, or I'm going to go beat him up, the autistic kid, right? So Christian goes, that's the way it is. And he's like, yep. So then he goes, I'm going to ask you one more, and this is now on video. I'm going to ask you one more time. Do you want smoke? Christian stands up, drops his school bag, and goes, yep. Walks right towards him, right? Gets 2 inches from him, just standing there. And he's like, do something. And now you can see the kid's like nervous, like, oh my God, this is actually happening, right? So quick, drops some guard, flips him over, puts him in the thing, gets a rear naked choke, hits him in the thing, right? And then everyone's like, what just happened, right? So it's like, done, right? So Christian like pushes off of him, stands up. Well, now everyone's like, dude, don't do that wrestling crap. This is a fight. You got to fight. Well, Christian trained in Muay Thai. So Christian gets in a Muay Thai stance. He's like, and he's like, there was maybe 2 or 3 shots, right, where Christian was like, dude, the kid couldn't fight. Like, he didn't know what he was doing, right? So even his professor who watched the video was like, dude, he was so controlled during the whole thing. He, ended the fight, got a little face in the mud, you know what I mean, and just kind of stood up. Maybe the kid cried and ran off, and that's the end of the video. But they're best buddies now, dude. He still knows this kid. He still knows the kid to this day, right? That kid's never picked on anybody, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. There's just like power in that. Like, and I don't tell my kids to go out and fight, but I always had a joke with them. I was like, listen, I'm like, the day you get suspended because you defended yourself and it's 100% self-defense, I'm like, you get a day of PS5, whatever you want to do. I'm like, the day you get suspended because you defended another kid who can't defend himself, you get Disney World. So
there we go.
So let's wrap this up, man. What's your why? What's your why, brother? What drives you?
I go all the way 7 layers deep for you guys, but when I go to my story and I look at my background and I look at the adversity that I put myself, my family through from 14 to the high schools to getting stabbed a bunch of times to almost dying. We were sniffing Oxycontins, getting all fucked up, and just how thankful I am for where I am today. My why goes into people need to not be so hard on themselves for their past decisions and give themselves permission to forgive themselves. Because what happens when you do that, my why, Sean, is showing that anything that you put your mind to, as long as you show up, you do the job, and you're simply not a piece of shit. Like, you can literally achieve anything if you put your mind to it. And for me, it's like, I'm just a walking example of a dude who did pretty much what he wanted to his whole life and made a decision to just say, hey, I'm going to change the way I'm living. Yep. I'm going to be a productive member of society. And so my why, in a sentence, I just want to show anyone that anything is possible. Put your mind to it.
It's amazing. And I love the forgive yourself part, because I think forever, man, people struggle with that. And they think about, oh, what did I put my wife through at that time? Or what did I this? Or I was, maybe you're I was a shitty dad at that, whatever the situation is, right? And you do have to forgive yourself, because if you don't forgive yourself, you're always stuck in it.
Forever.
You're stuck there forever, So I think that's huge. I think that's amazing. Well, this was as good as I expected it to be. Thank you very much, sir. You knew that you were a big target for the Underneath the Iceberg podcast, because you have a pretty interesting story there. Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. Like I said, guys, follow David Carroll. Anything in the direct mail space, you really should check that stuff out too. It's just amazing what you do with all the data. And just for content ideas and just to get inspired, man. So, David, I want to formally thank you in front of the audience for inspiring me, for helping drive my content strategy. Because, like I said, I've watched yours for a couple years now, and mine kind of mirrors it in a big way. So, thank you for that, brother.
Thank you.
All right, man. Have a great one.